All right, you guys, questions 5, 6, and 7, because 4 was the same as 1 from one of the other videos. We have x plus 1 squared equals 49. Now you can always put these answers back in for x and see if they work. We are looking for a number, when I add it to 1 and then I square it, is equal to 49. But this one's pretty simple to solve. We just take the square root of both sides. And if you take the square root of both sides, that cancels the square root, and we get x plus 1 is equal to positive or negative 7. Do not forget the square root is both a positive and a negative number. Then we subtract 1. So x1 would be positive 7 minus 1, which is equal to 6. And x2 would be negative 7 minus 1, which would be equal to negative 8. So our answer is positive 6 and negative 8b. Okay. Solve algebraically this other one. We're going to do it by solving by grouping. So I'm going to take these first two parts, put them together, and the second two, put them together. So out of x cubed minus 3x squared, they both have their greatest common factor is x squared. And then I have x minus 3 left over. And you can always check yourself by distributing x squared times x gives me x cubed, and x squared times negative 3 gives me negative 3x squared. And we're going to do that same thing for the second part. And there I'm going to take out a negative 4, because negative 4 times x will give me negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 3 will give me positive 12. Now, if you just took out a regular 4, it's not going to work, because what we wanted was to have these two things be exactly the same, which was x minus 3. And if those two things are exactly the same, then I can actually factor those out, right? And if I factor x minus 3 out, what's left over is x squared minus 4. Okay? So x minus 3 times x squared minus 4 is going to give me back, if you did it, it would give you back this original equation here. Now, it's still set equal to 0, right? So here, what number minus 3 is going to be 0? That's going to be x is positive 3. And here, what number minus 4 is going to be 0? What number squared minus 4 is going to be 0? That's going to be x equals positive or negative 2. Because positive 2 squared is 4 minus 4 is 0, and negative 2 squared is also positive 4 minus 4 is 0. Okay? And actually, you guys, I'm going to have to erase this so I have more room. All right. Now, we have for the function x cubed minus 2x squared minus 5x plus 6. What are all the possible zeros? Possible rational zeros are always of the form p over q, where p is the factors, all the factors of the constant. In this case, that constant is 6. It's the number that doesn't have a variable. Okay? P. And then q is the factors of the leading coefficient. And what that means is the coefficient of the variable with the highest exponent. So x cubed is the variable that has the highest exponent. It's cubed. And that coefficient is positive 1, right? But don't forget, we're talking about the factors. So p over q, all of the values are going to be positive or negative, right? Because everything's divisible by a positive or a negative. And on the numerator, that factors of 6. 1, 2, 3, and 6. 1 times 6 is 6, and 2 times 3 is 6. Don't forget, all of these are positive and negative. And the denominator, the factors of 1 are just 1. And since we've already made the numerator positive and negative, we don't have to make the denominator positive or negative. So technically, all of the rational zeros are positive negative 1, positive negative 2, positive negative 3, and positive negative 6. Because our denominator is 1, we're not going to actually have any fractions. Okay, and when it says determine algebraically all of the real zeros of this function, you have to do the long division to determine it algebraically of the polynomial. And I will actually just post some videos going over that. But what I would like to say is that what I will accept from you, as long as you have this part done, is if you put this into the calculator and find your zeros this way, your zeros are where it crosses the x-axis, and then explain that to me, I will accept that answer. If you want help with the long division, I'll help you with that later. Question number 8. What values of x make this equation 2? Like I said, you can always put those values back in, but let's go ahead, add 14 to both sides, and we get 2x plus 6 squared equals negative 30 plus 14 was what, negative 16? And I know it's going to be an imaginary number already because next I have to take the square root, and you can't take the square root of a negative number. It's an imaginary number. But what we can do, okay, that got rid of the squared, is say the square root of positive 16 times the square root of negative 1 is the same thing. And what I then have is the square root of 16 is positive and negative 4, and the square root of negative 1 is just I. So what we have so far is positive or negative 4i. Then subtract 6 from both sides, so I get 2x is equal to positive or negative 4i minus 6. And then the last step, divide both sides by 2. So x is equal to positive and negative 4i minus 6 divided by 2. We realize, what? That's not one of the answers we have here. But I can tell that both 4 and negative 6 are divisible by 2. So what comes up is positive or negative 2i, because 2 can go into 4 twice, minus 2 can go into 6 3 times. So positive or negative 2i minus 3, which is C. They just switched it around, so they put the negative 3 first, plus 2i, and negative 3 minus 2i. All right, you guys, what are the other questions we missed? I think it was, nope, we got 6 denominator, we did that one. Oh, here, simplify the expression below and state all restrictions on its domain. Okay, so we just simply need to factor the numerator and the denominator. So x squared minus 11 plus 20. Two numbers that add up to be negative 11 and multiply together to be 28 are going to be x minus 7, hey Orville, times x minus 4. That's our numerator. And our denominator, we need two numbers that add up to be negative 4, multiply together to be negative 21. It's going to be x minus 7 and x plus 3. So now let's talk about our domain. X cannot be positive, cannot be positive 7 because that makes 0. And x cannot be negative 3, because that makes 0. So can we narrow this down? Positive 7 and negative 3. Oh, look, you guys, we didn't even have to finish it up because we know C is the answer. But let's go ahead and do that. And all that happens is our x minus 7s cancel out. And you have x minus 4 over x plus 3. All right, dividing, remember, we're just going to change it to multiply and flip it over. But first we're going to factor everything. So if we factor p squared plus 7p plus 10, that's going to be positive 5 and positive 2. Because 5 plus 2 is 7 and 5 times 2 is 10 over, okay, don't forget those are going to switch. Two numbers that add up to be positive 1 multiply together to be negative 20. You guys should pause this and see if you can figure it out first and then come back and check your answers. But I think that's going to be x plus 5 and x minus 4. Okay, oops, we're doing p's. Sorry, change those to p's. We're going to switch our divide to multiply, and then we're going to flip this next one over. So our numerator now is actually going to be whatever I factor out of this one. So two numbers that multiply together to be 20 and add up to be -9 are x, what is that going to be? Oh, 5 and 4 again, but this time they're both going to be negative. X minus 5 and x minus 4 over, and then factor this. This is the difference of squares. So I know this is going to be p minus 4 times, oops, the square root of p squared is p, the square root of 4 is 2, so it's going to be p minus 2 times p plus 2. So let's factor as much as we can. I have p plus 5 here, I have p plus 5 here. Oh look, I made these x's again, but they're p's. I have p minus 4 on this denominator and p plus 4 on this numerator. I have p plus 2 here, I have p plus 2 here. Looks like I have p minus 5 over p minus 2. Looks like our answer is A. And just FYI, we are very heavy. The test is very heavy on this type of question, so I'm going to definitely add to that page a bunch of extra practice problems for rational functions. Okay, so look, subtract and simplify. You guys, this one's way ready to go because our denominator's the same already. So all this is going to be is x minus 1 over x squared minus 1, but the denominator is the difference of squares, so I can change that to be x minus 1 over x minus 1 times x plus 1. X minus 1 times x plus 1 gives us x squared minus 1. These are the same, literally the same thing, but when I have it like this, I recognize that x minus 1 and x minus 1 cancel, so my simplified form is 1 over x plus 1, which is D. And I think this was all of the ones that we were missing. Is there some at the end? Oh, 26. Was I missing 26? Maybe. I think I was, but you guys, I think I already did this video sometime earlier, so I'll try to find that. Good luck studying, and I will see you for your final.